Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Rise of Kingdoms episode from your very own Shappy Gaming. Today we are going to be talking about something that is very important. Whether you are new to the game or old to the game, it always changes. And today we're going to be discussing really what commanders you should be working on, what pairings you're going to want to be running, and really who you probably don't want to be working on at this point. So with that, why don't we get into it with what the current Garrison and Rally metas are that you should really be keeping in mind. So, first things first, let's talk archers. The current archer Rally meta is going to be Gilgamesh with Nebuchadnezzar. And here is my Gilgamesh tree. I can't say that this is going to be the best tree ever, but it treats me pretty well, so feel free to copy it. The reason you want to run Gilgamesh Nebu is Gilgamesh's last skill here has a 30% chance of inflicting a blood craving debuff on targets. And what this does is it's going to not only make them take increased skill damage, but it's also going to make it so that if they're a healing commander like Xeno, they're actually going to hurt themselves. So Gilgamesh Nebu is going to be the archer rally meta as of today. I really wouldn't be rallying with anyone else. Some people will rally with Ramses Nebu, and that's pretty good, but I honestly would say Gilga Nebu is the way to go if you're a rally leader. Now, as I said, I'm going through the rally and garrison commanders first. The reason I'm doing that is that if you're a rally and garrison leader, that means you're going to be spending money. That means that you are going to be working to see that you can get the best equipment possible. That means that you are going to be striving to max KVK tech every time that we have a KVK with tech. If you're not doing those things, you should probably not be maxing the pairs that I'm suggesting right this minute. And the reason I say that is if you're in a stable kingdom that's competitive, there are going to be spenders that have better equipment than you. There are going to be spenders that will max KVK tech if you don't. And those people should be the ones garrisoning. And those people should also be the ones rallying because, as we've spoken about before, the tech of the person who is rallying or who is garrisoning applies to everyone within that structure. And now, the way that they've changed things is you get your kill contribution from garrisoning based upon the number and the type of units that you send. So, really, this is for rally and garrison leaders right now. If you'd like, I can put in the comment section where we'll start talking about field commanders because those are also incredibly important. And that's where your free to play and low spend will shine. But, so we've spoken a little bit about Gilgamesh Nebu. They're going to be your archer rally. Now, let's move swiftly onward to the cavalry rally meta. And this has actually changed recently. So if you haven't watched my Nevsky video, be sure to check that out. That's going to be right over there at the top right side of your screen. But Nevsky has shaken up the meta. And so the new cavalry meta for rallying is going to be Zai with Nevsky. And so you want Zhang Yu with Nevsky. That's really going to treat you the best. It deals an immense amount of damage. It will absolutely decimate a mandatory Artemisia. And it really is going to excel when you own the field. Same thing with Gilga Nebu. Neither of these pairs are going to do particularly well if you don't control the field. But if you do have the field and you can stop reinforcements, these two pairs are just going to absolutely ruin any garrison that you run into. So Zhang, Nevsky, a secondary cavalry rally. You could do Zhang, Chandra. That used to be the meta back in the 2021 days. But at this point, I think that Nevsky is going to be a far more versatile commander for you in general. That said, you can also run a Chandra Nevsky rally, which showed to do really well against Xeno YSS, but not as well against everything else. So just keep that in mind. I think if we're talking about where to maximize your investment, I think that Zhang Nevsky is going to be the cavalry rally that you're going to want to go for. Okay, on to infantry. So I do expect this may change with upcoming releases. You know, the next commander pair is going to be infantry. But today, the best rally pair for infantry is going to be Pakal Herald. And this is a word to the wise here. Pakal Herald is a great pair for rallies, and they're a great pair for the field. Same thing with Nevsky. And Gilgamesh, but less so. You really want to run Nebu ISG, but we'll get there. Pakal Herald is a really well-rounded infantry march. You can launch this infantry rally when you don't have the field, because no one wants to swarm Herald and no one wants to swarm Pakal either. So that's actually really good. This pair is not going to be as strong as Nevsky or as Gilgamesh, but if you are doing a pretty good job, you've got the right equipment on, Pakal Herald can treat you really well. That said, if you're not planning on rallying, you know, you might not want to max Pakal. I think Herald alone, Alex Herald, is a beautiful field combo, and both are very versatile commanders that you could switch out. Pakal is a little bit less so. In theory, you could run him with Guan, but he's going to be a little bit harder for you to max. So there are your three kind of infantry rallies right off the bat. Feel free to disagree with me in the comment section below. You know, I am all ears. But those are going to be your three Season of Conquest pairs. Now let's talk about the garrisons. So you have a Manitore with Artemisia. So here's Artemisia. And I don't have a Manitore, sadly. This is going to be the best archer garrison. And I say that pretty confidently. A Manitore and Artemisia is really, really strong. Last KVK, Gilgamesh was the only way to beat them. But even then, if you didn't own the field, you know, your Gilgamesh would get swarmed. I expect the same thing will be said with Jang and Nevsky. If you don't own the field, you're going to have a problem. That said, Jang Nevsky can beat Jadwiga YSS, and it can also beat a Manitore Artemisia. So that pair that we're talking about now, a Manitore Artemisia, is going to be the current archer meta. You can use a Manitore YSS if you so chose. You might not trade as well, but at least you can use mixed troops should you choose to, which actually may help you defend a little bit better against the Nevskys. But at the end of the day, if you see a Nevsky rally coming, you really want to swap to Xeno YSS. Which brings me to the next pair, which is Xeno YSS. So Xeno YSS has been kind of a steadfast garrison for a long time. Here's YSS. And you usually do want to be using mixed troops with him. You know, as you can see here, when troops led by this commander consist of 2 or more different troop types, they gain 20% increased attack and 20% defense. So you'll tend to see Xeno YSS with mostly infantry, a little bit of something else. Really, really robust pair, really strong. And YSS at this state in the game is probably worth maxing if you want to be a garrison for anything, because you can run Jadwiga YSS, you can run a Manitore YSS, you can run Wu YSS, you can run YSS Theo. He's really, really versatile. So if you do think you want to be a garrison but you don't know who you want to pair, I would start with YSS because he's going to treat you really well. So that brings us to our final pair. Also, you can run Xeno Theo. That's also a fairly good pair. Not going to be as good as Xeno YSS, but if you need a garrison, it'll treat you pretty well. Though at this state in the game, you probably don't want to be maxing Theo. So, swiftly moving onwards, Jadwiga YSS is the cavalry garrison. Once again, it's going to be cavalry with a little bit of something else. But Jadwiga is really good as cavalry. If you just want to do a full cavalry garrison, what you can do is you can do Jadwiga with max Saladin. Saladin has a skill damage taken reduction, so that's actually going to treat you really well in a garrison state. But typically you'll see Jadwiga YSS fairly good as cavalry. You really, really want to make sure that you are putting primarily cavalry in this garrison. If you're not, you're going to have a very difficult time here because she doesn't thrive with full mixed. You know, put mostly cavalry, a little bit of infantry or something like that. But that is your cavalry garrison set. I hope that clears that first part up. I'm going to do this quick verification. The next thing we are going to be talking about are the field pairs that you might want to invest in. And bear in mind that as I talk about these field pairs, we're going to be talking about the pairs that are most versatile for a low spender or for a free to play. I mean, even for a whale as well. But my goal here is to have you, as my viewers and my subscribers, maxing the commanders that are going to be most versatile for you, rather than maxing the commanders that, you know, might be great in this one particular narrow instance. So, field pairs. You can max Attila Takeda. Attila Takeda is very, very swarm proof, which is great. If you only have a couple marches, you don't have 5 marches, but you want to field something, Attila Takeda is going to treat you pretty well. The same thing can be said of Alex Harold, or even Pakal Harold, but Alex Harold is the one you typically go for because Alex is easier to max. Both of those pairs going to be very swarm proof. You can throw them in altar, you could throw them in ruins and get swarmed and usually trade pretty okay, especially if you have great equipment on. You'll usually do pretty well. But if you're running a 5 march pair, I would not actually suggest you max Attila Takeda. Great for rallying cities, but he's kind of dated. I know, I'm really bummed too. What I would suggest you max is Alex, for sure, because you can use Alex Richard, and he has a support skill here that will actually put up a shield to defend a friendly troop. Who do you pair with Alex? That's really up to you. So you can run Alex Richard. That's like a KVK2 pair. It's pretty good, even to this day. It has long-lasting power on the field. What you will see most people running, which is why I've done my tests, is Guan Alex. But at this state in the game, I am not sold on Guan anymore. You know, I think he's good, but he's not swarm-proof. So if you're running 5 marches and he's one of them, sure, that's great. But if you want to be running Guan, you probably want to be running Guan Leo. So it's really up to you. But you definitely want to be running Alex. You can pair him with Harold. You can pair him with Guan. You can pair him with Richard. He's going to be ultra versatile. You can also pair him with YSG, which is another commander that you absolutely want to max. Ethelfled. So Ethelfled you want to be using in a 5 march set. Should she be, you know, the best march in the world? No. But the reason you want to run Ethelfled is that she is going to have a massive debuff here. You see, she deals damage up to 5 targets and reduces their attack, defense, and health by 30%. This is really, really big. When you're in a swarm, when you're in a field battle, you want to be debuffing enemies and you want to be buffing your own. And so Ethelfled is actually a pretty robust commander to have in the field. The problem is, who do you pair her with? So if you are a free-to-play player, Ethelfled Joan is actually pretty good. If you have YSG maxed, you can put Ethelfled with YSG, no problem. But it's a glass cannon. You're probably going to melt. And everyone targets Ethelfled first. I think the best pair for Ethelfled at this point in the game is really probably going to be Trajan. Trajan is just an absolute monster in the field. Not necessarily because of the damage he deals, but because the skill damage bonus as well as the support that he just gives out. Troops led give 5% defense, health is increased. But you see here, he also has that leadership buff, where if you have 3 different unit types, they deal more damage, which is great, especially if you're running Ethelfled. So I would say if you want to run Ethelfled and you're like, who's the best pair for her? I would say Trajan. If you don't want to run Ethelfled, but you do want to run Trajan, that brings you to Mulan. Mulan is another really great field support commander. She's gold keys, and she will give circular area of effect 15% attack, defense, and health, and 25% march speed. So if you have Mulan maxed and you're in ruins with Trajan, your allies are going to be just thanking you because Trajan is typically not going to be targeted first. He's a little bit tankier than some of the other marchers, especially if there's a Nevsky out there. And so this will keep the support going for a fairly long time. The next commander, we're going to talk about YSG. YSG is by far the best commander to have in a 5 march pair. Why is that? The reason you want YSG is really because the skill damage and his expertise skill of damage of up to 5 enemy troops in a circle area. And the 2 of those is really just going to make you just an absolute nuke. And so you always want to have YSG because you're going to deal damage to a bunch of enemies, even those that aren't attacking you. And you can pair him with numerous commanders. You can have Richard YSG, probably not the best. You can have Alex YSG, pretty good. Martel YSG, also pretty good. If I were to say the best pair for YSG in the field, and this is perhaps a commander you should also max, especially if you consider potentially going for a rally, is Nebu. If you run Nebu YSG, that is, I believe, I would need to get fact checked on Nevsky, but prior to Nevsky's arrival, that was the biggest nuking pair you can have in the field. And so Nebu YSG is definitely going to be one of those field pairs that you want to have. You know, probably Guan Alex or Guan Leo. It's going to be a little bit harder to invest in. You can put a mandatory Artemisia in the field. Artemisia does have her AoE skill, which is pretty good. And I think mandatory also does. Let's see. Does she also have one? Yes, she does. So they both have AoE, which is good. And they're a very strong field pair. So if you have a mandatory Artemisia, I would say don't be afraid to put him in the field. You're obviously going to want to change your talent tree setup to help support that. You know, you're probably going to use support and Archer rather than Garrison. Shocker, I know. And if you guys do want me to make a video going through talent trees, more than happy to. But today I just wanted to cover what pairs you should be investing in, regardless of who you are. And now we're going to talk about cavalry. So the cavalry deal has changed. It used to be that the low spend pair to get would be Saladin William. 5551 Saladin, 5551 William. Really cheap and actually pretty lethal in the field. But now with the arrival of Nevsky, I would say no matter who you are, Nevsky is probably a must-have in your field setup. And there are a couple reasons for that. Not only is Nevsky going to deal just an immense amount of skill damage. I mean, we can go down here. You can see his first skill alone is dealing 2,300 damage. But he's also going to reduce enemy defense by the number of enemies surrounding the target. And so if you're running a 5 march pair and you're swarming a target, you need to have Nevsky in there. And if you have Ethelfled, you see where I'm going. You've got the debuff, and then you've got this defense debuff. It's just murder. So the cheap pair. The cheap pair, I would say at this point, is going to be Saladin Nevsky. Nevsky can be used when he's not maxed. You usually want to max him, but he can be used when he's not maxed. If you missed my Nevsky unmaxed testing video, be sure to check that out. And hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That's going to be on the right side of your screen, right on the bottom there. Helps me out, and it makes sure that you don't miss upcoming videos. And, okay. I've spoken about Nevsky before, or Nevsky. I think you're probably going to also want to run that in the field. I will caution you. This march will deal a lot of damage, but it will also be the first march that's targeted on the field. Or at least it should be. Take notes. Nevsky is going to deal an immense amount of damage. And that's going to be great in a field pair. And it's also going to be really versatile in a rally. And so, the moral of the story here is play how you really choose to play. You know, in the past, it's always been you specialize in one unit type. And I personally have never really gone with that. I've always gone for the best pairs that will work for me. But the reason that people say that is that your civilization has a unit type buff. And your city theme will have a unit type buff. So typically you don't want to be trying to run all 3 different units because you're going to be debuffing one of them. And so if you're going to go all cavalry or all infantry or all archers, I think that you're going to have a very different time in the field. And so when I talk about the best field pairs and the best rally pairs, it might say, you're not talking all archers. I think if you're going to be talking all archers or all infantry or all cavalry, you may very well not be running the best pairs you possibly could. That said, there are pairs that you can run that are going to do well. Cyrus Tamiris does well. Edward Tamiris is fine. I don't really like Edward. He takes too long to trigger his skill. You can run Attila Takeda in the field. You can run Saladin Cow. But that gets a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of, what is the 5-march pair I can run if I'm just a cavalry specialist? And I don't really want to get into that because I think there's a lot of minutia and it can really get disagreed on. But I hope that what I've told you guys today is helpful. I hope that it helps you in KVK and it helps you and your allies win. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of your screen and the bell so you don't miss upcoming episodes. We will be doing everything from Osiris League to KVK to more Commander coverage. And I hope that you've enjoyed. I know I have. Shappy out.